Picture the scene. It's a Tuesday morning. You've got this critical presentation at work, so you leave the house early.
Always a good plan.
Right. You rush into the subway station, you tap your card, the gate opens, you run down the escalator.
And it's packed.
It is completely packed. Just a wall of people, dead silence, the train isn't moving.
Oh, yeah.
And then you get that garbled announcement about a, signal failure that sounds like it was recorded underwater.
Classic.
Or maybe you're in a high-rise, pressing the button for the lift, and absolutely nothing happens.
Yeah.
You're just standing there waiting for a machine that broke 3 hours ago, but nobody knows yet.
It is the absolute classic urban frustration loop. I mean, you feel totally helpless because the system has failed, and you are always the last one to know.
It's more than just frustration, though, isn't it? It leaves you with this lingering question. Like, why do we only find out things are broken after they've already ruined our morning?
Exactly.
Why does the system always feel like it's reacting to a disaster rather than, preventing it?
Well, that is the break-fix mentality. It's the standard operating procedure for most cities, honestly, and it's exactly what we're tearing into today.
Yes, welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are looking at a white paper that hit our desk recently, February 26, 2026, to be exact.
Fresh off the presses.
Right, from IoT World. It's titled, Establishing AIoT-Driven Operational Intelligence Across Public Infrastructure.
Quite a mouthful.
It is, but the mission here is pretty bold. It's basically asking, can we give a city a nervous system? Can we stop governments from just playing catch-up and have them start predicting the future?
Or at least predicting the future of their own pipes and trains, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
This paper is super interesting because it's not just a tech brochure. It's essentially a really sharp critique of how the public sector currently manages the physical world. It argues that we desperately need to move away from reactive maintenance, fixing the burst pipe, and move toward proactive operational intelligence.
Okay, but before we get into the how of all this, we need to deal with the alphabet soup in the title.
Yes.
AIoT.
Right, AIoT. Now, we've covered AI extensively.
Sure.
And we've covered IoT. But usually when you mash two massive buzzwords together like that, I get a little skeptical.
Oh, totally understandable.
Is this just, marketing fluff, or is there a real tangible distinction here?
No, the distinction is actually critical. So think of IoT, the Internet of Things, as the raw sensation. It's the sensors, the nerve endings of the city.
Okay.
So a sensor on a water pump can tell you, I am vibrating at 50 hertz. That is IoT.
Got it.
But that data by itself is just noise.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually tell you what to do with that information.
Right. It's just a number blinking on a spreadsheet somewhere that probably nobody looks at.
Exactly. So AOT, artificial intelligence of things, is when you layer a brain on top of those nerves. The AI analyzes that vibration data, compares it to historical patterns, and says, hey, this pump isn't just vibrating. It's about to shear a ball bearing in exactly 48 hours. Shut it down now.
Okay, so IoT feels the pain, and AIoT diagnoses the illness. That is a great way to put it. And the white paper heavily emphasizes that without that AI layer, public infrastructure is just drowning in data it literally cannot use.
It's just noise.
Exactly. This isn't just about having fancy smart gadgets for the sake of it. It's about fiscal survival, public safety, and frankly, whether our cities can even function properly in the late 2020s.
Well, let's look at the status quo then, because the paper paints a pretty grim picture of how things are currently run. They call it the visibility challenge.
Which is a very polite, very consulting-style term for we have absolutely no idea what is happening out there.
I am definitely going to use visibility challenge next time I lose my keys. But seriously, what does the paper say is the root cause here? Because cities have computers, they have massive databases. Why on earth are they flying blind?
The core problem isn't a lack of computers at all, it's fragmentation. The paper describes these siloed departmental systems. So the water department has their own database. The roadworks team has a spreadsheet. The energy grid relies on some legacy mainframe from the 90s.
Right.
And none of them talk to each other.
So if the water department decides to dig up a road to fix a pipe, the road department might not even know about it until they see the traffic jam on the evening news.
Precisely. That happens all the time. But it goes even deeper than that. The paper highlights this massive reliance on manual reporting mechanisms.
In 2026.
Yes, even in 2026. A shocking amount of infrastructure management still relies on a human being physically seeing a problem and then literally filling out a form.
So we're essentially just waiting for a citizen to call the hotline to say the street light is out. It's like driving a car with a blindfold on until you hit something.
That's exactly what it is. And think about the lag time there. The light goes out on Monday. A citizen happens to notice on Tuesday. They finally call it in on Wednesday. The work order gets typed up Thursday. The repair crew goes out Friday. That is 5 days of failure. And that's just a light bulb.
Jeez.
Now apply that exact same timeline to a gas leak or a structural crack in a transit bridge.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's the domino effect the paper talks about.
Yes. Because you're reacting so late, the damage compounds. A small leak becomes a massive sinkhole. A slight motor vibration becomes a total electrical burnout.
Which costs way more to fix.
Exponentially more. The paper argues that this whole break-fix cycle is wildly expensive. You are paying emergency rates for last-minute repairs, you're paying massive overtime, and you're just bleeding efficiency.
And I assume this makes compliance a total nightmare, too. Like, if you're relying on some guy named Bob to write down on a clipboard that he checked the safety valve, that is a pretty shaky audit trail.
It's terrible. Inconsistent compliance is the term the paper uses. If you can't definitively prove you checked the infrastructure because the record is a coffee-stained piece of paper.
You have a huge liability problem.
Exactly, a huge one.
Okay, so we have firmly established that the current method-fragmented silos, manual reports, waiting for things to break, is both expensive and dangerous.
Very much so.
So the paper pitches AIoT as this national enabler. Let's break down the actual solution here. They outline 4 core benefits. I really want to go through these because this is where we actually see what this nervous system does in practice.
Sure, let's dig into them.
The first one is real-time infrastructure monitoring. Now, this seems obvious, but how does it actually differ from what we have now?
It moves us from taking snapshots to watching a video, metaphorically speaking.
Okay, I like that.
Right. So instead of a city inspector checking a subway lift once a year to see if it works, the lift itself is reporting its own operational status every single second.
Wow, every second.
Exactly. We're talking about massive energy systems, water infrastructure, transport nodes, environmental sensors. It completely changes the definition of an inspection. You no longer need to send a guy in a truck across town just to see if everything is okay.
Because the asset just tells you it's okay.
Okay.
Which leads directly into the second benefit they mentioned, automated incident detection. This is where the real efficiency kicks in, right?
That's right, because the AI system has predefined rules about what normal looks like.
Okay.
If the water pressure in a main line drops below a certain threshold, or the temperature in a critical server room spikes, an alert is generated instantly.
Without a human involved.
Yes, you completely remove that human delay. You don't wait for the angry complaint call from a resident. The system has already dispatched a repair technician before the public even notices there's an issue.
That is the absolute goal, isn't it? Invisibility. I mean, I don't want to know that the train system is working incredibly hard behind the scenes. I just want to arrive at my meeting on time.
And that is the paradox of really good infrastructure. When it works perfectly, you don't even notice it exists.
True. Now, benefit number 3 is one that sounds incredibly dry, but I suspect it's secretly very important. Data-driven regulatory compliance.
Oh, it's huge.
Sell me on this. Why should you, as a regular listener going about your day, care at all about compliance data?
Because you care about not having bridges collapse while you're driving over them.
Point taken.
Compliance is basically the unsexy backbone of public safety. The white paper argues that AIoT provides a transparent, unchangeable record.
Unchangeable being the key word there.
Exactly. If there is an accident, you can pull the exact telemetry data from that exact millisecond. But more proactively, it makes routine audits incredibly cheap and fast.
How so?
Well, you don't need to pay an army of consultants to dig through dusty filing cabinets for 6 months. The digital dashboard is the audit. It's instantaneous and objective.
Okay, fair enough. Transparency keeps people honest and saves money. But benefit number 4 is absolutely my favorite.
Predictive maintenance.
Yes, predictive maintenance. This feels like the holy grail of city management.
It really is the holy grail. It is the fundamental shift from reactive maintenance, which is fixing the broken thing, to planned intervention.
Give me a concrete example of how this plays out differently than the standard method. Let's really visualize this.
Okay, let's take a large industrial water pump for a major city district.
Okay.
Standard method, you run that pump until it literally stops working, then everyone scrambles, you have to shut off the water supply for 10,000 people, and you replace the entire massive unit because it completely blew itself apart.
Total chaos.
Yeah.
Incredibly expensive. Everyone on Twitter is furious.
Exactly. Now, the predictive method. The AI constantly monitors the pump. It notices a tiny harmonic distortion in the pump's rotation, a sound frequency that a human ear could never pick up.
Wow.
It analyzes that and predicts with high certainty a bearing failure is going to happen in exactly 3 weeks.
3 weeks out.
Right. So the city calmly schedules a maintenance technician for a Tuesday at 3 in the morning when water usage is at its absolute lowest. They go in, replace a $50 part instead of a $50,000 pump.
And nobody loses water service.
Nobody notices a thing. No massive overtime pay, no emergency contracts.
That is a staggering difference. It's basically the difference between rushing into emergency open heart surgery versus just taking your vitamins and going for a jog.
That's spot on. And the paper frames this as a vital dual benefit. For the government, it's governance efficiency. They are saving millions of tax dollars. But for you, the citizen, it's public service reliability.
The lift actually works when you need it to.
Precisely.
So we get the what. Let's pivot to the why. Because obviously saving money is great, but governments are complex beasts. They have competing interests. They need high-level strategic reasons to invest billions of dollars in deploying sensors everywhere.
Oh, absolutely. And the white paper breaks this down into 4 specific pillars of policy alignment.
Right. These are the arguments a minister would actually use in Parliament to get the massive budget approved.
Exactly. These are the strategic drivers.
So the first one is fiscal responsibility. We touched on this just now. Fixing things early is clearly cheaper. But does it go beyond just the immediate repair costs?
It goes way beyond that. It is really about the total asset life cycle.
Okay, explain that.
If you maintain these massive infrastructure assets perfectly, using predictive data, they might last 20 or 30% longer.
Which means
you don't have to build a brand new power plant or buy a whole new fleet of subway trains nearly as often. Over a decade, that is massive macro-level long-term savings.
that makes a lot of sense.
Plus, the paper heavily emphasizes reducing energy waste. If your system knows exactly where lighting or HVAC is needed in real time, based on occupancy sensors, you stop spending millions heating completely empty public buildings at night.
Which dovetails perfectly into the second pillar they mentioned, environmental sustainability.
Exactly. You cannot reduce what you cannot measure.
Right.
Governments all over the world have these super ambitious carbon targets right now, net zero by 2050 and so on. But without granular real-time operational data, those goals are basically just guesses.
You're just hoping you hit the target.
Right. AIoT gives you the actual scorecard. It tells the city manager, hey, this specific municipal building is bleeding energy from its HVAC system, so you can actually go fix it and prove you lowered emissions.
The third pillar is public safety. Now, we mentioned preventing bridge collapses earlier, but I imagine this also applies to things like disaster response.
Hugely. Think about flood management.
Yeah.
If you have IoT sensors deployed in storm drains, rivers, and coastal barriers, they can trigger automated flood defenses before the water even hits the streets.
Wow, without someone having to make a frantic phone call.
Exactly. It completely removes the human hesitation from the emergency response chain. It buys you time. And in any natural disaster, time is the only currency that really matters.
That's powerful. Now, the fourth pillar really caught my eye because it feels very 2026, digital sovereignty.
Yes.
This sounds inherently geopolitical. What does the white paper mean by digital sovereignty in the context of smart city infrastructure?
This is a really crucial point. We live in a world where data is basically power. The paper argues that if you are going to build a comprehensive nervous system for your entire country, you absolutely need to own that nervous system.
You definitely don't want the live data about your national electricity grid or your municipal water supply sitting on a server in some foreign country.
Correct. Or even just sitting on a commercial cloud platform where the corporate terms of service could theoretically change overnight.
Right, that's terrifying.
It is. The paper strongly advocates for deploying locally governed AIoT platforms. It's all about ensuring that sensitive infrastructure data remains under appropriate jurisdictional control.
So it's a matter of national security, really.
Absolutely. If you lose control of the infrastructure data, you effectively lose control of the city.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
It's not just about operational efficiency, it's about national independence.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say a city leader is listening to this right now.
Hopefully they are.
They're completely sold. They want the nervous system. How do they actually build it? Because you can't just sprinkle smart dust all over the city and walk away.
No, you definitely cannot. And the white paper is very, very specific about not trying to boil the ocean on day one.
Right.
They recommend a very strict 4-phase implementation framework, mainly to avoid the kind of massive billion-dollar public IT failures we've all seen in the past.
We've seen too many of those.
Yeah.
So what is phase 1?
Phase 1 is asset prioritization. This is basically the discipline phase.
Okay.
They warn agencies not to try and put a sensor on every single park bench and trash can immediately. You have to pick the high-impact categories first.
Like public buildings, major transport nodes, critical utilities.
Exactly. Safety-critical systems. You have to start where the pain is highest and the risk to the public is greatest. Because if the subway breaks down, the city starts.
But if a park bench breaks...
It's just annoying. So start with the subway.
Got it. Then we move to phase 2. Pilot deployment.
Right. This is all about proof. You pick one specific district or maybe one specific class of asset, let's say, all the escalators in the main transit hub.
Okay.
You deploy the AIoT solution there, and you rigorously measure the results over a few months. You absolutely need to prove the concrete cost savings and the performance metrics to the Treasury before they will ever fund the rest of the project.
That seems very wise.
Yeah.
Don't bet the farm until you know the tech actually works in the real world. Now, phase 3 seems to be the hardest one, in my opinion. Standardization and governance.
Oh, without a doubt, this is the headache phase.
Why is that?
Because suddenly you have 50 different tech vendors trying to sell you 50 different proprietary sensors, and none of them talk to each other natively.
Right. We're back to silos.
Exactly. So phase 3 is where the central government steps in and says, no, this is the national standard.
Right.
This is the exact data format we require. If you want to sell hardware to this city, you follow our interoperability rules.
And I'm guessing cybersecurity falls heavily into this bucket, too. Right?
Yeah. 100%. Look, if you connect a major suspension bridge to the internet, someone, somewhere, is going to try to hack it.
Right.
Establishing very strict national cybersecurity standards for all these IoT devices is entirely non-negotiable at this stage. You simply cannot introduce massive new vulnerabilities in the name of efficiency.
Safety first. And then finally, we hit phase 4, scaled rollout.
Right. Once the rules are firmly set and the pilot project proves the ROI, then you expand. You go from one transit hub to the entire city network. You go from a dozen water pumps to the entire national grid.
With central oversight.
Exactly.
Now, the source material mentions specific technology platforms here, like Favorite, as an example. Now, I'm not really interested in the sales pitch, but what kind of capabilities should a government actually be looking for in a platform like that? Like, what are the absolute non-negotiables?
Well, the white paper highlights a few critical features using Favorite as the benchmark. The first major one is device agnosticism, meaning the platform works with literally any brand of sensor. Exactly. You do not want a city locked into one specific hardware vendor for the next 20 years. The central platform needs to be able to talk to anything you plug into it.
That makes sense. Future-proofing.
Right. The second required feature is secure connectivity with centralized dashboards. We already touched on the security aspect, but the third one is arguably the most practical for a government. Integration with legacy systems.
Oh, this is huge.
Yeah.
Because no city is starting from a blank slate. They all have computers from 1995 running crucial underground systems.
Completely true. A mayor might look at this and worry, wait, do I have to rip out all my old functioning infrastructure just to make this AI thing work?
Maybe do they?
The paper says no. A good AIoT platform sits on top of the legacy systems.
Oh, okay.
It securely pulls data from the old mainframe stuff and the shiny new wireless sensors, and it combines all of it into one unified environment. It is an upgrade, not a demolition.
That is a very key distinction. It's evolution, not revolution.
Exactly.
But there is one revolution required here, isn't there? And it's not actually technological. The paper has this one line that stood out to me. Operational intelligence is not merely a technical upgrade. It is a governance capability.
Honestly, that is my favorite line in the entire document.
Translate that for us. What does that actually look like on the ground?
It means you can go out and buy the absolute best sensors in the world, the smartest AI, but if your internal culture is broken, the tech simply won't save you.
Right.
Think about it. If the AI system sends an urgent alert saying, bridge vibration abnormal, and the public officer receiving that alert doesn't understand what the data means, or they don't have the explicit authority to close the bridge, or they're just too afraid to wake up their boss at 2 a.m.,
The bridge still falls down.
the bridge still falls down.
Wow. So it's fundamentally a people problem.
It is a capacity building problem, as the paper calls it. They emphasize that success absolutely requires training public officers to be highly data literate.
You have to teach them to use the tools.
Right, you need to change the entire daily workflow. You are essentially asking people to stop being firefighters, the heroes who rush in with sirens when things violently break.
Yeah.
And you need them to start being monitors, people who quietly fix things before anyone even notices. That is a very different skill set and a totally different mindset.
It also requires breaking down those human silos we talked about right at the beginning. Like the road repair guy and the water pipe guy actually have to talk to each other now because their data is sitting on the exact same dashboard.
Yes. And honestly, that internal political friction is very often harder to overcome than the technical implementation itself.
I believe it.
Because sharing data ultimately means sharing power, and government departments rarely like to do that voluntarily.
So true. So let's say a city actually pulls this off. They get the tech, they train the people, they successfully break down the departmental silos. What is the final measurable impact? What is the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow?
According to the source, agencies can expect a clear trifecta of outcomes. First, massive reductions in unplanned expenditure. You literally stop burning taxpayer cash on midnight emergencies.
Okay.
Second, vastly faster resolution of faults. Things get fixed before the public even has a chance to complain.
Always a win for a politician.
Definitely. And third, much better cross-department coordination, which leads to enhanced public trust.
Trust. Now, that's a big word to find at the end of a highly technical paper.
It is, but it perfectly fits. Look, if the trains run on time, if the water is always clean, if the streets are safe and brightly lit, people inherently trust their government more.
Yeah.
But if everything around them is constantly broken and delayed, that trust erodes very quickly. Public infrastructure is basically the physical manifestation of the social contract.
Wow. When the pavement has holes in it, the social contract feels like it has holes in it.
Exactly.
That is an incredibly powerful way to frame it. We've gone from talking about smart sensors to the social contract pretty fast.
It escalated.
It did, but it absolutely holds up. I mean, we started this deep dive asking why we always find out about these infrastructural problems too late. And after going through this, the answer seems to be we don't have to anymore. The technology currently exists to know sooner.
That is the crux of the entire paper. Ignorance is now a choice.
Which brings us to a somewhat provocative thought I want to leave you, our listener, with.
Okay, let's hear.
The white paper suggests that transparency and accountability are simply expected of modern governments. But I really want to push that idea just a bit further based on everything we've discussed today.
Go on.
If the tools exist right now to accurately predict a failure, to completely prevent a disaster from happening, and a government actively chooses not to implement them, is that just run-of-the-mill bureaucratic inefficiency? Or does it cross the line into negligence?
Oh, that is exactly the question, legally and ethically, that we are rapidly moving toward.
Right.
In the past, a city official could stand at a podium and say, look, we had no way of knowing that pipe was going to burst. It was unpredictable, an act of God.
But now,
if you have the sensors and you have the AI, and the platform told you it was going to fail, and you simply didn't look at the dashboard, that is not an act of God.
no.
That is a catastrophic failure of governance. The standard for what is considered good enough is shifting beneath their feet. It is no longer acceptable to just be really good at cleaning up the mess afterward. You are now responsible for ensuring the mess never happens in the first place.
A nervous system doesn't just feel pain, it's what keeps the entire body alive and functioning. It really seems our cities need to evolve this capability, or they risk just decaying from the inside out.
I couldn't agree more. It's adapt or fail.
Well, next time you are on a train that runs perfectly on time, or you happen to walk past a construction crew quietly fixing a pipe that hasn't even burst yet, take a second to wonder, is that just luck? Or does your city finally have a brain?
Something to think about.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.